Excellent. For those that don't know me, my name is Michael Boylan. I'm current chair of the Association of Nairn Businesses and chair of the Nairn Connect's bid steering group at this current time. I'd like to thank you all for coming out on a freezing cold night and making the effort to come along. Really appreciate it, and at short notice in your busy lives. So, in terms of setting up tonight, I think we all know why we're here. In terms of the introduction, or the proposed introduction of parking charges into Nairn and other places in the Highland Council budget, which is set to be voted on this week. Really wanted to set tonight up, and we've invited our ward councillors, and I'm delighted that 3 of them have managed to come along tonight. Invited them along to really hear from the community, to hear from businesses and local organisations around what our opinions and what our thoughts are on parking charges within Nairn, prior to them going and voting on the budget later on in the week. So that's what we're here for today. In terms of a couple of details, just to keep everybody on track, the introduction of parking charges is on this week's budget, being voted on by our councillors. There are proposals within Nairn to add parking charges into the library car park, the harbour, Cumming Street and the Maggot. So some large public areas that are well used by both pedestrians and cars. So that's why we're here. Within some of the budget information, it says it's the first of a 5-year programme. So again, we don't know what that means later on down the line. I think that's an important point to note. It is also subject to a more detailed review and consultation, and I'm quoting there from that detail. So I think really important that we note that. However, in my mind, there is a little bit about shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted, hence why we have called this meeting prior to the budget vote, with a minimum fee of £1, and that's obviously a starting point. I don't know where that would go to. We've had a lot of support, so I think it's very clear from a business point of view that the Association of Nairn Businesses and the Nairn Connect's steering group are against the introduction of any parking charges into Nairn. We are not for a selection of parking charges. We are not for even consultation on it, to be perfectly honest. I think we are very adamant that the impact and the potential impact on businesses within Nairn would be so detrimental that it really is not worth it. In terms of the story of where we are, and I can speak about this. I've been involved right from the start with Nairn Bid, along with Nice and Michael Green. We have looked at options in which we can look at ways of bringing in some resource and invigorating the business community within Nairn, and adding real value to making a difference in terms of marketing Nairn as a place for tourists to come, as a place for people to come and spend their hard-earned cash. And I think from our point of view, and certainly my own personal point of view, which I'm quoted on this week, is that our main objective has to be to ensure that people regard Nairn as a place to come. And what we shouldn't be doing is making them think twice. Because if they think twice, they think 3 times. If they think 3 times, they go somewhere else. And I think that's really important. We've had a lot of support, so some great articles in the Nairnshire Telegraph and in the Inverness Courier today that carries a lot of weight for us. We've also had an email from our MP, Drew Henry, today, and I wanted just to quote a little bit out of Drew's email. Drew stated that Nairn deserves a well thought out and agreed plan to protect and boost our community and economy, and I believe this proposal does not achieve outcomes that would deliver for Nairn. And I think that's probably a good summation of where I stand. As I said, we've got 3 councillors. I'm going to ask the 3 councillors, I'm going to put them on the spot and ask them to join me out at the table. It's a bit like Dragon's Den, so I'm going to ask the 3 of you to come out if you don't mind. Grab a seat at the top. rather than being into main doors yet. Warming up now. And I'm really appreciative of our councillors coming out, and you know, I've made this comment to a couple of people, and you know, you get the usual retort back of, and I'm sure I'm not speaking out of turn, I'm sure the three of you have heard this at some point before, but you get the usual retort back of that's what they're paid for. But this must, you know, to come into this place tonight, it must actually feel like coming into the Dragon's Den. And so, I wanted to be really clear about the way we're going to work tonight. So what I'm going to do is really open it up to the floor. We've got this roving mic, so anybody that needs to speak up can use that. And the purpose is to ensure that our councillors have really heard our opinions prior to going to vote. I remind everyone that we're not at a trade union conference. Yeah, I remind everyone that there is no picket line, there is no banners, etc. That I would be really grateful if we could manage our own emotions and ensure that we maintain that really positive conduct to ensure that our councillors can get an opportunity to listen to as many people that want to speak before they make up their minds at the budget. Okay, so I'm going to start by opening it up. I know a few of you in the room, so if there's no volunteers, I will put a microphone in front of somebody. I'm good at that. So if anybody wants to speak up first, I would be grateful for somebody to kickstart it.
Do the councillors know how this process started off, and how they arrived at the decision to consider parking charges within there?
The answer to that is no, in as much that Liz and I are not part of the administration, and Tom's been away on family business for the past 3 weeks and wasn't party to the discussions which the administration in Inverness had.
I would say through the redesign board that the council has set up, they have been looking at introducing parking charges in towns and in other areas across Highland. But there has been no decision made in that subgroup about implementing them. So it has been discussed in the redesign board, but no decisions had been made there about applying more charging. And I think it's something that's come through the budget process. As Peter said, as opposition members, we just got sight of the papers last week as well. I saw the papers that had been leaked and I flagged it up. But I didn't leak it, I saw it had already been leaked, and I thought, well, this is the issues in those papers that affect Nairn, and that was why I started promoting them through the Nairn share.
Thanks. Tom?
Whilst I was away, I was part of some initial discussions, and Stuart's question was about how it all began. There's a thing about trying to find as many ways as possible of generating levels of income. That was raised at a very early stage and commented upon by both Laurie Fraser and myself. And neither of us accepted that that was a way to go.
Thank you. What I don't want to get into is loads of questions for our council. Councils have taken the time up to come and listen to our opinion, as I say, prior to the vote and all that. So don't want to get to Q&A, like Q&A. It's not question time, I'm not Jonathan Dimbleby. So apart from it, so you know, really looking for opinion and thoughts, and well considered. So Jeff?
Something that emerged from the Energy Telegraph article, which you haven't mentioned, is the potential cost for parking for people actually working in there. It's likely to be a minimum of £20 a week. If they're working more than 5 days a week, it's going to be even more. And I think this would need to consider that.
I agree, and it might not just be charging people, but as it said, it could displace people. So instead of being in the car parks, they'll be in the residential areas close to the town.
Just concerned about obviously parking down at the harbour. A lot of people when they go to the boats need need the car to transport all their items. Also, I do boat trips from there, as you know. The problem there being we've got a restricted tide. If people are going to come on a set trip, they've got to find park, and it's going to delay the trips. It's just, I know you can't really say, oh, exempt the harbour, because of everybody will be down there parking as well. So.
Think about the markets. I mean, that is common good car park, so we shouldn't even have considered that one at all. And if we can get that taken out, well, that should alleviate your people going on your trips, if we can make sure that the markets are, but I'm against them all.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay. I'm going to stand up because I want to keep warm by the heater. I think I've got 3 or 4 things to say. I hope you won't mind if I go on a little bit. I'm famous for doing that. The first thing I want to say is that I find it really disappointing that we're here at all. I think a lot of us, me included, have been accused in the past of being negative, obstructive, critical and complaining. I think an awful lot of us want to try and do things positively from there. I mean, Michael said that in the introduction of the bid. And yet here we are once again fighting a rearguard action, trying to resist an idea which is damaging and detrimental. And that is fundamentally wasting energy. I think it's a real shame that this idea has even got any airtime. And I think it's really important that at this meeting we make our view clear, that we're against the idea in principle. We could all argue about how much or how little to charge, or which particular patches of ground we put the meters on. Those are details of implementation. I think we ought to take a very firm stand that says this is a bad idea for Nairn in a lot of different ways, and make that fundamental view of principle clear to our own councillors and to the rest of Highland Council. There are some places where parking is appropriate, where parking charges are appropriate. In city centres, where there's a serious problem with traffic congestion, where it's part of an overall traffic management strategy. But basically, we don't have a serious parking problem in there. Most of the time, people get parked in most of the places they want to get parked, when they want to get parked. So there is no management case for bringing in parking charges to deal with a transport and traffic problem, because there isn't a problem. What this measure is likely to do is cause serious problems. It's going to, and we don't need to go through the list, but it's very obvious that if people are charged for parking in council spaces, they'll go and look for the free ones. And the free ones are under the control of businesses like the co-op or the banks, and they're under the control of other private firms, or they're residential streets. So it will create a problem that at the moment we don't have. So it's not appropriate for now. There is a point that people have already made about 2 at least of the 4 areas that are earmarked for charges are common good. That's the Cunning Street Links area and the Magnet. Now, it is a fundamental principle of common good, and it's a principle that Highland Council accepts, that any revenue generated from common good assets has to go to the common good fund. The rent that the shows pay, the rent that Park being the caravan site pays, all that money goes directly and totally into the common good fund for the benefit of the town and community of Nairn, who are the beneficiaries of the common good. So it is well out of order. It's a red line for Nairn that the Highland Council should not be using our community common good assets to raise money to plug a hole in the Highland Council budget. It's fundamentally wrong. So at least 2 of those areas should be taken right out of consideration. I think, as I said, I was disappointed that we're having to oppose this. I'm deeply depressed to observe that we've known about the Highland Council's financial struggles for months. The ruling group on the Highland Council have been sucking their teeth and looking at options for weeks, if not months. I don't know why this proposal wasn't strangled at birth. I'm astonished that it's been given any airtime at all. I think our councillors should have made absolutely clear, as soon as this option was aired, and it's not the first time, as the Nairn Telegraph editorial points out, as soon as this proposal was aired, all our 4 councillors, and particularly the 2 who are on the ruling group, should have made abundantly clear that this should not fly. Now that it's out there on the table, I think it's important not only that they should vote against it, because we've only got 4 out of 80, but they should make clear that if this goes through, they will consider their positions in the famous political jargon. I think it's that serious for Nairn, and I think our councillors ought to be aware of that. Thank you.